Welcome back. In this section, we're going to understand what SQL means. SQL, like we said, it can be pronounced as SQL or SQL. Whatever you call it, whether it's SQL or SQL, we all go back to the same thing. We mean that language which is structured query language. Like we said, SQL is used to manipulate and work with databases. If you realize, we use databases on a daily basis to store our information, from our banking details, contacts of our friends, messages we send to one another, in a text, SMS, iMessage, WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram, name it. All modern applications use databases to store our information. Even something as basic as a username and password, it should be stored in a database. So almost all modern apps use databases these days. However, there are different types of databases. For example, we have the relational databases, NoSQL databases, among others. But all these store information electronically, and it can be accessed using computer-based systems. With the relational databases, information is stored in tables, rows and columns. And Oracle is one of the examples of a relational databases. Almost all relational databases use SQL. Remember, we said that SQL is not the only language used to manipulate with database. We can have other languages like NoSQL or NoSQL. It doesn't use SQL. But SQL is so far the most powerful and most popular programming language whenever we are manipulating databases. SQL is used in so many areas. For example, if we need to do data analysis, data science, all those are done using SQL. Programming, whenever we are programming for the back. To confirm the popularity of SQL, I'll leave you with some links in the description to read for yourself. SQL statements come in different categories. What do we mean by SQL statements? SQL statements are the commands we use whenever we are working with SQL. For example, if I'm to post a message on WhatsApp or Twitter or any other application, I use a SQL statement. For us as users, normal users, we just click buttons, that send button, the delete button, the update button. But behind that button lies a SQL statement that makes the magic whenever we are posting that smiling emoji, whenever you're posting that crying emoji. So we need to understand these SQL statements and how they are categorized. To start with the data definition language. When we talk about a language, we don't mean another type of language. No, it is just a set, a subset of SQL. Or the SQL command, all SQL commands fall under a given category. We are starting with the data definition language. With this kind of statements, for them their work is to create objects. For example, if I want to create a table that will be used to store records, remember we said relational databases use tables to store information. So if there is need for us to create tables, we use statements under the data definition language. Statements like create table, create user, create session, and so many others. They don't make any change to the data in the database, but they are used to create objects. Then another set is the data manipulation language. Whenever we need to make a change to any data in the database, for example, we need to delete a record from the database, or we need to update anything in the database, or we need to push some information in the database. To make those changes, we use statements under the data manipulation language. Statements under data manipulation language include statements like insert. Insert is a statement we shall use when we are creating new information in the database. Statements like delete, update, all those statements are used whenever we are making a change to the data. Then we have the transaction control language. These statements are used to control transactions. Whenever we make a change to the records, the changes are not immediately effected, but they can be either saved or discarded. So whenever we need to save, we use a statement called commit. Whenever we don't want to save the changes, maybe I have deleted a record accidentally and I need to reverse that action, I will use the rollback in Oracle. So a transaction is just a change. Whenever we need to either save or discard these changes, we use it's under the transaction control language category. Then we have another category called the session control language. The session is that period from the time I log onto the database to the time I leave. Sometimes we need to make changes to different user sessions. This is at a more advanced level, and we shall not be looking at such statements in this series. So whenever we need to make changes to the user sessions, we use the session control language statements. Then we have another one called the system control. Statements under system control are used to make changes to the entire database systems. I used to keep track of the entire database system. For example, I need to make a change in one of the settings for the database. I'll use the system control statements. SQL is a powerful language used to manage data and one of the most popular programming languages. SQL is used by developers, data analysts, data scientists. In the coming section, we are going to learn how we install Oracle on our machines and we get started.